We begin with breaking news out of the United States this morning, where we've just learned that former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
North America correspondent Cayman Gok is following this developing story. Cayman, what can you tell us?
This appears to be quite a serious diagnosis because not only is it an aggressive form of prostate cancer, but it has spread to his bones, which often makes it much more difficult to treat. Now, this diagnosis came about after he'd reported increased urinary symptoms, which led to doctors investigating. They found a small prostate nodule, and it is an aggressive form of prostate cancer. In a statement, a spokesperson for Joe Biden said the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Now, the 46th president had kept a relatively low profile since he left the Oval Office, but in the last 2 weeks he'd returned to the public eye. He'd done some media appearances with the BBC and the NBC, criticising the current administration, but also defending his own legacy after there's been renewed media speculation domestically questioning his mental acuity surrounding his time when he was president, and that's because there's an upcoming book with a CNN journalist and an Axios journalist speaking with Democratic insiders about his mental fitness during the latter period of his presidency. Joe Biden rejects that there was ever a mental decline, but that pressure around his age and mental fitness did lead to him dropping out of that presidential race against President Donald Trump and allowed for Kamala Harris to take on the now president, Mr. Trump. But it's now revealed that whilst he's been dealing with this increased political scrutiny, he has also been dealing with a physical battle with this intense, aggressive form of cancer. And President Donald Trump has continuously attacked Joe Biden since he returned to the Oval Office, repeatedly blaming him for many issues this country currently faces. But he has released a statement, and a rare non-political statement, and it reads, Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. Kamala Harris, his vice president, has also posted just now saying Joe is a fighter, and I know he will face this challenge with the same strength, resilience and optimism that have always defined his life and leadership. We are hopeful for a full and speedy recovery. The Biden family, sadly, is no stranger to cancer. Joe Biden's son, Beau, died in 2015 to an aggressive form of brain cancer. And Mr. Biden has himself survived several serious health scares, including 2 brain aneurysms in the 1980s. But this diagnosis comes only months after he finally left the life of public service. He'd been a senator for Delaware since the 1970s. Of course, he was vice president under Barack Obama and president himself. Now at 82, an elderly man, his family will consider their treatment options with his physicians.
Cayman, thanks very much.
All right, there is plenty going on the north coast of New South Wales this morning, Nate. There is some big surf, there's been some pretty wild winds, and of course a lot of rain, and not a lot's going to change for much of the week.
Not at all. This is all thanks to just one system, a stalled trough. We were forecasting it last week, and it arrived just as predicted. Yesterday the rain really started, and overnight we've seen some huge falls. Pictures from the region show just an absolute drenching, trees down. We've got totals now in excess of 130 millimetres. So this is affecting the Hunter and the mid-north coast. Right now, essentially, perfectly around Newcastle is where the heaviest rain is going on. And this is by no means a flash in the pan. In fact, I was talking earlier this morning to Angus Hines from the Bureau of Meteorology, who said we're going to have to brace for quite some time of this.
It's not just a one-day affair. It's not going to be one and done today. It is going to be several days in a row. So even if the numbers for today don't sound too alarming, well, if you get those numbers 3 or 4 days in a row, that's when we could really start to see some issues in terms of flooding and flooded rivers, which are certainly possible around the Hunter district and the mid-north coast over the next several days.
Those day-on-day totals could be as much as 180 millimetres in any given 24 hours. Take a look at the maps because we've got some warnings as a result of this system through New South Wales. We're talking about damaging winds, heavy rainfall through that area you can see to the north, extending from just north of Port Macquarie, essentially down to Gosford, and then some hazardous surf, in fact damaging surf conditions, then along the coast all the way down to Sydney waters today. Now this trough is really pumping the air into the coastline, and that's what's causing this rain, and you can see it is stationary. It isn't going anywhere, and those biggest falls are likely to essentially remain in place through the day today into tomorrow. We've already seen rivers rising, some where we don't have classifications for minor, moderate or major. I've got rises of 5 metres plus, and that rain isn't going anywhere at least until Wednesday or Thursday. It'll then ease off a little bit, and we're going to see the showers continuing after that. 300-400 millimetres between now and the end of the week. For some, maybe even bigger totals. It'll just depend on how this develops and moves.
All right, Nate, thank you for that. And please take care at home if you are in those areas. Emma's here with our headlines.
Thank you. Opposition leader Sussan Ley has admitted the Liberal Party is out of step with modern Australia in a new opinion piece, promising a full rebuild of the party after its resounding election defeat. It comes as the opposition faces growing tension within its ranks and between the coalition partners over its stance on net zero emissions and nuclear energy. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters have taken to the streets of Melbourne, with smaller rallies also held in Adelaide and Brisbane to commemorate the Nakba as the situation in Gaza deteriorates. The day recognises the mass displacements of Palestinians during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. In Melbourne, police worked to separate the demonstration from a small group carrying Australian and Israeli flags. There were no arrests. A man is due to face court today charged with 53 counts of hate-related offences in Sydney's inner west. Police say officers caught the 21-year-old defacing images of Pride and First Nations flags in Petersham yesterday. He's also accused of vandalising political posters and buildings with Nazi symbols last month. It comes ahead of the first hearing of the New South Wales parliamentary inquiry into anti-Semitism this morning.